Hello and welcome to the May edition of Spotlight Tampa. I'm Laura McElroy. Thanks for joining us today. First in the spotlight, Tampa's Heart is joining the national push for Congress to renew federal transportation funding. It's known as the Moving Ahead for Progress in the 21st Century Act. And the funding is set to expire at the end of this month. That's why in April, Hart held a bus town hall meeting. It was part of Stand Up for Transportation Day, when more than 350 groups nationwide hosted events raising awareness about this issue. Hart's Sandra Morrison has more on this national effort that continues to pick up momentum.
Hart will join about 300 transit agencies across the country for the National Stand Up for Transportation Day. But most importantly, Hart is inviting Tampa to stand up for transportation here at the Marion Transit Center. Hart is hoping to raise public awareness and seek solutions for America's transportation infrastructure funding crisis. With America's public transportation, roads, bridges, and rail systems in critical need of renewal, government officials, business and labor leaders, community groups, and transportation advocates gathered to raise awareness of National Transportation Infrastructure Day. Hart Board Chair Tampa City Councilman Mike Suarez is one of many local leaders getting the word out and creating an awareness and support for long-term sustainable transportation funding that create jobs and spur economic activities here in Tampa and local communities throughout the country.
Well, federal funding has always been extremely important whenever it came to transportation. Abraham Lincoln was one of the first people to describe and to promote building more roads, bridges, and railroads, primarily to expand the U.S. From where they were all the way out to California. Without that kind of thinking, we wouldn't have built this nation. Transportation funding now means that cities like Tampa and other cities throughout Florida have the dollars necessary in order to expand access for more people, make economic opportunity greater for more number of people within our county.
Affordable and reliable transportation networks like Hart provide a critical service to Tampa residents and businesses, which is why reauthorizing a long-term transportation bill that increases federal funding for agencies like Hart is crucial to everyone.
I use the bus for everything at this moment, you know. I've lost my license, but because of something like this, it makes me be able to do the things I have to do in life without any hiccups or anything like that involved. So it's been very 100% important to me. It's imperative that I can get on the bus at the right times, and there's more times and actually availabilities to get on the bus, not just once an hour or so on. It's very important to me.
The message is loud and clear. Tampa residents like Wanda want Congress to make transportation funding a priority and pass a multi-year, well-funded transportation bill so she can focus on her new job instead of worrying how she's going to get around in Tampa.
This is the way I get around every day. I don't have a car, so I depend on Hotline.
Transit is what provides a type of economic opportunity and connections for people across the city and across the county.
Hart uses federal funding for its preventative maintenance and for buying new buses and vans. The agency also relies on federal grants. That's how Hart built its first compressed natural gas station and rehabbed an operations facility to the National Energy Efficiency Standards. Ready for some funky flowers in your yard or garden? Well, Hillsborough County Extension Service has some great tips on how to do just that. Today, they're also showing us some great Florida-friendly landscaping plants that thrive in our area.
Hi, I'm Lynn Barber, Florida-Friendly Landscaping Agent, UF IFAS Extension, Hillsborough County. And today, my buddy Zach from City of Tampa TV is here with me so I can show you some of my favorite funky flowers. So, the first choice that I have today is this lovely, lovely plant. And it is a Gloriosa lily. So the cool thing about it is that it is just colorful. It looks like an upside down butterfly somewhat, and it's really wonderful. So it can get to be about 6, 8 feet tall. It's easy to propagate. You can either propagate it by seed, and the seed pods are really quite pretty. Nice, colorful. Or you can propagate it by the roots. And you need to plant this plant the roots very deeply. And it's a wonderful, wonderful, gorgeous plant. So what I love about this plant is not only that it's easy to propagate, but it's also stunning in the landscape. And it comes in, you can see it in red and yellow, or you can see it in an orange and yellow. And I have more in the backyard too. This plant is another one of my favorites. It's a Rangoon creeper. It can get up to 40 feet tall, and it's very, very fast growing. The flowers are beautiful and very fragrant. They start out with like a light pink, then become a darker pink, and yet even darker pink. So it's not flowering yet, but it is certainly happy at this point. It is pretty aggressive, so you need to keep an eye on it. But to find out information about different plants that you have questions on, there's a really simple resource that you can access for free. The Florida-Friendly Landscaping Guide for Plant Selection and Landscape Design. Now this is a great guide because you'll see that many plants that we're talking about today are in this book. As a matter of fact, Rangoon creeper is right here. The good thing about this guide is you can order it free from watermatters.org, which is Southwest Florida Water Management District, or you can get a free copy at our office when you attend a triple workshop: compost, water-wise, or rainwater harvesting. You can register online at our website. Now, what I love about this book is that it tells you whether the plant needs sun or shade, what the soil pH needs to be, is it fast growing or slow growing, what about the soil texture, does it attract wildlife, any other aspects of this plant are covered. It's a great book. Free index in the back. You can look up the plants. Voila. I love tillandsias. There are 85 native species of tillandsia in Florida. The cool thing about tillandsias is that they're epiphytes, and that means that they live on other plants or objects, but they don't live off of them. So the cool thing about tillandsias is there's a mother plant, and when the mother plant has pups, ultimately the mother plant will pass away. The mother plant dies, and you get multiple additional plants. I love them. They're easy care. Water them once a week. They're enjoyable. Minimal maintenance. We talked about tillandsia being part of the bromeliad family. This is another example of a bromeliad. This is a great bromeliad because it can be in the sun or the shade. If it's in the sun, it has this beautiful yellow-orange color, but if it's in the shade, it's more green. It has a flower spike that's 3 to 4 feet tall and magnificent. But it does have very sharp edges, so it can cut you. You need to be careful and wear heavy-duty gloves when you deal with this plant. If you hear any buzzing, it's the honeybees that are attracted to the powder puff plant. Powder puff plants come in many different colors. They come in white, they come in pink. There are large plants, there are small shrubs. So it just depends on how much space you have. They're easily propagated from cuttings or seeds. I already have seed pods on this plant, which are kind of cute. They just curl up. This particular plant is, as you can see, probably 6 feet tall. The plant behind it is the white powder puff. And the difference between the two is the size of the plant, but also the size of the puff. You can see these puffs are beautiful and they're very small. But the white powder puff, amazing. 2 to 3 inches is the puff on those. And when all that plant is covered with white powder puffs, it's a sight to behold. It's definitely a stopper in the landscape. So we're in the backyard now, and we're talking about spiral ginger. Not all ginger is edible, and this one is not. So the cool thing about this plant is it does have a bamboo-like appearing stalk, but it is not bamboo. It has a nice green shiny leaf. The underside is great. It's soft like velvet. I wish I had a pillow made out of that material. It's a wonderful plant. You can see that it has these gorgeous red waxy flowers, and then it has a yellow part that reminds me of the beak on a bird. So to me, it's somewhat bird-like in nature. It's stiff, it's beautiful. You can propagate it from the clumps. It's a lovely plant. I have it in several places in my yard. It just continues blooming for a long period of time. It does well in sun or shade, and it's a very happy plant that just continues to clump and grow. Gardening in Florida is a great pastime. We're very, very lucky because we can garden nearly every single month of the year. So if you have questions about gardening, plants, you need advice, you need help, we provide solutions for your gardening life. Give us a holler, UF IFAS Extension, Hillsborough County, and be sure to ask us about a copy of this book. Order your own at watermatters.org. Stop by our office, see the Betty S. Walker Discovery Garden and our perennial garden, which will give you several examples of plant materials and landscape design that you can take home with you.
Spanish moss is the common name for the most common air plants in Florida. They live on other plants but don't harm them. That makes them epiphytes, not parasites. You can find 85 species of native air plants in our state. Education is a vital component of the Florida Aquarium's mission. It's been focused on teaching all ages about Florida's aquatic environment since it opened 20 years ago. And now the Tampa attraction has the brand new Carol J. and Barney Barnett Learning Center. The aquarium's Vice President of Education, Debbie Stone, brings us the latest lessons from the deep.
We are in the lab of the Carol J. and Barney Barnett Learning Center. We had our ribbon cutting on October 8th, 2014, and it was a really exciting moment for us because it was the first time that we had redone our classrooms or done anything with our learning spaces since we opened in 1995. When we started designing the Carol J. and Barney Barnett Learning Center, we started thinking about what are our goals, and we wanted the students that came to the Learning Center to feel like they were participating in something completely unique. We have 5 distinct learning spaces, 6 if you actually include the interactive hub where the students start their programming. And this is just one example, and this is our lab. This is primarily for older students, but each room has a different feeling, a different focus, a different theme. They all represent a learning space that feels like you're almost immersed in an exhibit. This will be our first summer where our campers get to come and be part of this immersive experience in the Learning Center. So we run camps from pre-K, 3- and 4-year-olds, all the way up into age 18, believe it or not. We have a dive camp for high school students. So students come on site and they do dissections, they do crafts, they view our galleries, they do lots of different things. One of the really unique things about our program is we have travel camps for grades 4 through 8. And those students come and spend a little bit of time here, but then we get them out into the environment. So they spend the week going around and looking at springs, going to the beach, doing all kinds of fun things. So we have students here on site in the Learning Center doing all kinds of fun camp stuff, and then we have kids out in the community really experiencing all the wonderful things that Florida has to offer. But over the last 20 years, we've really grown and expanded to reach all different kinds of audiences. Actually, even before the Florida Aquarium opened in 1995, there were educators out in the community doing outreach programs. So education's been a part of our mission even before we opened the doors. So from the very beginning, we've been doing teacher workshops, we've been doing classroom programs. When school groups come on field trips, they might spend some time with an instructor, maybe doing a squid dissection or learning a little bit about some of the animals we have on our pathway. So each one of our Learning Center spaces is equipped with this 70-inch Mondo pad, and essentially what this is a giant tablet device. It can do anything a computer or an interactive touchpad can do. And one of the things we love to do are squid dissections. And our squid are only about yay big, so some of the things that we're looking at can be quite small. What you see here are images of chromatophores, and these are the pigment cells that are on a squid. So sometimes when kids are looking at their squid and they're not quite sure what they're looking for, we can show them a magnified image and circle and say, this is exactly what you're looking for. So they can be dissecting the squid right at their lab bench and be looking up here for some visual cues of some of the things they might be looking for. For example, when we actually start talking about the squid beak, unless you're talking about the giant Architeuthis squid, our squid, again, being about this big, you might not quite know what you're looking for. And when you see an image like this, and we're able to come and say, look, this is what you're looking for, and this is what it looks like magnified, kids can really see and explore their squid with their hands and also with their eyes. So it's one of the really neat things that we've been doing. So what I'd like to do is take us into the coastal room so we can take a look at some other immersive activities that we do here. So welcome to the Florida Coastal Room. One of the things I'm going to be showing you is an experience that students in here have meeting some of our live invertebrates, such as our pencil urchin right here, which is one of my favorites because a lot of times when you look at it, you don't even really think about it as being a real living animal. And one of the really fascinating things about the animal world is that over 97% of the animals out there are animals just like this, invertebrates, no backbone or spine. We're part of the 3%, all the vertebrates, and those are the animals we're most familiar with. But this little critter here, the pencil urchin, is really cool because it doesn't even have a brain, and yet somehow it knows how to eat. It's got a mouth here on the underside. And so kids can come in here and actually touch a real live animal and see what it's like to look at a critter that knows how to eat and move around without even having a brain. So it kind of makes us think about the mysteries of science by getting hands-on. So I think with that, we're going to wrap up and head to In My Backyard learning space. So we are in a room called In My Backyard, and we designed it to look like you're literally in your backyard. So this room was designed with early learners involved, even everything down to the little chairs. We kept all the needs of early childhood learners in mind. So we made it very welcoming, immersive. When the kids come in, they see lots of color, but they also see things that are very familiar, things they literally might see in their very backyard. And most of the program that goes on in this room focuses on Florida habitats and the things that kids can become familiar with. Because we've learned through research and working with scientists that have become wonderful environmentalists, most kids get excited about nature through the things that they see every day in their own backyard. And it's only later in life that they start to explore the Galapagos Islands or the Marianas Trench. And they really start to build a foundation of what is nature and what are all the things that are around us and what do things really need to thrive. And I'm very excited to say that we actually have a special guest with us here today named Tango. Hi Tango, come on out. This is Tango, our female loggerhead sea turtle. She's one of the newest additions to our team here. So if you come to the Florida Aquarium as part of our 20th anniversary celebration, where you might meet Tango for yourself. So let's give a big old wave, Tango, and we'll take it on out from here.
Next month, we will have more on how the Florida Aquarium has grown and improved over the last 2 decades. A hot new restaurant is opening its doors in Tampa's West Shore district. The Besitos Mexican restaurant is already a big hit. Spotlight's Frank Crum reports on what the restaurant's extraordinary flavors mean for the Bay Area's food scene.
All right, you guys ready to rock and roll?
Last month, Mayor Bob Buckhorn welcomed to Tampa the newest addition to the city's restaurant scene.
1, 2, 3.
Besitos Mexican restaurant is offering an upscale dining experience. This translates to high-quality ingredients, food made from scratch on site, and a sharply dressed waitstaff. There are currently 5 other Besitos Mexican restaurants centralized in the northeastern part of the U.S. John Tunney, founder of Besitos, says the demographics of Tampa made it the prime choice as a gateway into the Southeast.
Tampa is a place that is a city full of energy. It's full of people who understand dining. Everyone here is a foodie. Everyone likes to go out and have a good time. And so if we look at the United States, the southeast portion of it, Tampa is the ideal spot for us. We have hometown partners here in Tampa as well. And again, this market, people enjoy quality dining out, and we've got a real quality experience for everybody.
Besitos' concept centers around 2 things Tampa Bay diners long for: authenticity in food preparation and a great atmosphere.
Foodie culture and the interest in fine cuisine and different kinds of concepts, not just fine dining, but all kinds of concepts, has really evolved. And what that means is it's quality of life. It makes Tampa Bay an exciting place to stay and live.
This is Frank Crum reporting for Spotlight Tampa.
Well, serving up tasty dishes right here in Tampa, Besito is also feeding needy children in Mexico. It's sponsoring a school kitchen as part of the Feed the Hungry San Miguel program. The kitchen will feed hundreds of elementary-age children a year in the rural Mexican town of San Miguel de Allende. Stay with us. There's much more Spotlight Tampa to come right after the break.
A full life, measured in seats, starts with the right ones early on. Car crashes are a leading killer of children 1 to 13. Learn how to prevent deaths and injuries by using the right car seat for your child's age and size.
It's one of the most important decisions that a mayor can make. Given the nature of policing, it is a dangerous, tough, complicated job. And it's important that we find that balance. It's important that we find that middle ground where we serve the community and we treat everyone with respect.
I'm Eric Bernard Ward, and I've been with the Tampa Police Department for 27 years. It's a lifelong goal. When I came to the police department, all I wanted to do was be a police officer. Never thought I would be the chief of police, but I think in this position, I can do a lot of good, bringing the community together with law enforcement. Well, this is the Belmont Heights Little League baseball field, and this is where I got my start. This is my first involvement with organized sports, and it kind of set that foundation for everything else I did in life. Coming back to the community was one of my goals, and when they transferred me back to this district, which is District 3, it was like a homecoming. You know, a lot of the people that I've worked with in the past or mentored were still here, and it gave me an opportunity to give back to the community once again. You know, this is something I enjoy, being out in the community, and looking forward to my next chapter. The relationship between law enforcement and community was very strained. Back in that time, there were a lot of civil unrest issues. Seeing others around me complain about it and did nothing but complain. When I turned 21, I thought that in order to make a difference, I would join the police department and try to make a change from within. When I was a little kid, I had an opportunity to come to PAL. It gave me some structure, and it also gave me an opportunity to interact with the police. That's where I learned that most police officers were good. You have to interact with kids at a younger age. You know, the sooner we can interact with them, the better it is for law enforcement and the community. Probably the most proud moment for me in law enforcement was the day I got sworn in as a police officer. Not many kids in my area, wanted to be police officers, so for me that was a turning point in my life. All I wanted to do was be a police officer, and I had finally achieved that goal.
I think Eric represents the next generation of leadership at Tampa Police Department. He's a guy that's a product of the neighborhoods. He grew up here. He knows this community like the back of his hand. He feels and cares very deeply about it. He has come through the ranks as sort of the unsung hero of that department. At every level that he has served, he has excelled in his own quiet, methodical fashion, not asking for accolades, not asking for credit. He was a guy that you could go to get a job done, and he's done it well at every position he's ever served in.
Welcome back to Spotlight Tampa. I'm Laura McElroy. Norman Rockwell captured the scenes of American life on the cover of the Saturday Evening Post for nearly 50 years. Well, now you can see those covers at the Tampa Museum of Art's latest exhibit. It's aptly called American Chronicles, the artwork of Norman Rockwell. It's on view through May 31st, and you don't want to miss it.
This exhibition is called American Chronicles, the Art of Norman Rockwell. And it's a very large exhibition. It comes to us from the Norman Rockwell Museum in Stockbridge, Massachusetts, which is where Rockwell spent the last 25 years or so of his life. He had a studio there, he had a home there, and before he passed away, he decided that he would like that to become a museum. And so it now houses the largest collection in the world of artwork by Norman Rockwell. And we're very fortunate that they have agreed to lend us several hundred pieces of work by Mr. Rockwell. In this gallery where we're standing now, we have a complete set of 323 Saturday Evening Post covers, each of which was designed by Rockwell. And that's what he's most famous for. From very early in his career, beginning in 1916 until much later, 1963, he worked for the Saturday Evening Post. Not exclusively, he worked for others at the same time, but this is what he was most famous for. People all over the country looked forward every Saturday to receiving their Saturday Evening Post. And it wasn't every issue that was illustrated by Rockwell, but many, many of them were. And as I said here, we have a copy of every one that he did, 323 in all. And we have them arranged chronologically. So you begin in 1916, and you can sort of walk through almost 50 years of American history by looking at these covers. Some of them are directly relevant to historical events, others are a lot more fun. And invite you to think about who these people might be and what's going on in their lives. Well, one of the really exciting things about this exhibition is that we have all of these covers, which, as I said, is what he's best known for, but we also have more than 50 original oil paintings done by Rockwell. All of these covers began as oil paintings, and the magazine covers are magazine size so that you could hold them in your hand, and that's a special aspect to them, that millions of Americans could hold these covers. The oil paintings that were used to produce the covers, of course, are one-of-a-kind, unique originals. And so we're very fortunate to have more than 50 of these oil paintings, where you can see on a much larger scale just how talented Rockwell was as an artist. We absolutely see people with a great sense of nostalgia. We have a lot of visitors who can remember actually receiving some of these covers, probably not the earliest ones, but some of the later ones. And they'll really spend a lot of time in this gallery looking at all the covers. And then we have others who say, wow, when they see the oil paintings, I didn't realize just how talented he was. And then the other interesting thing about this exhibition is that we have the covers, we have many of the paintings that came before the covers, but we also have in the final gallery of the exhibition work from later in Rockwell's career, after he stopped working for the Saturday Evening Post. He started working primarily for Life magazine and Look magazine. And with those publications, he was able to engage with more sensitive types of material. He was very interested in the civil rights movement that was going on in the 1960s. He was very interested throughout his life in political events, but the Saturday Evening Post wanted things to be clean and tidy and happy. And so he wasn't permitted to delve into these touchier sorts of issues. And so in this last gallery of the exhibition, we see paintings, two in particular. One called The Problem We All Live With, which he was inspired to paint after the story of Ruby Bridges integrating the schools in New Orleans. And then another painting, or series of paintings that he did, called Murder in Mississippi, which was inspired by the murder of 3 civil rights workers in Philadelphia, Mississippi in the summer of 1964. These were eventually published, or one of them was published in the summer of 1965. And we have a lot of material related to Rockwell's working process. So we see some photographs, we see some newspaper clippings, we see his handwritten notes, we see his typewritten notes, we see his correspondence with the editor of the magazine, we see letters to the editor after it was published, and so we get a great sense of how he was actually working and how deeply these issues really touched him. Norman Rockwell is widely recognized as one of the most famous, the most popular, the most prolific American artists of the 20th century. In his lifetime, he produced some 4,000 works, not all nicely finished oil paintings, lots of quicker things, but just an incredibly prolific artist. And in his day, he was often referred to as an illustrator in a bit of a pejorative way. He was not engaging with the contemporary or the modern art world at the time. But that wasn't necessarily because he wasn't a talented artist, it was just that that wasn't his style, that wasn't what he wanted to do. In recent years, with this exhibition and others that have been organized by the Norman Rockwell Museum, there has been a real reappraisal of Rockwell as an artist. And he's now receiving a lot of the accolades as a true artist, a fine artist, that he did not receive during his actual lifetime. And so we're very excited to have the exhibition here to offer to the people of Tampa and visitors to our museum to judge for themselves. And I think you'll see in many of these paintings, the pure emotion is something that is definitely art. It's not mere illustration.
Tampa Fire Rescue welcomed a new class of firefighters to the job last month. Our CTTV camera followed the recruits through 6 weeks of training that helped mold them into Tampa's bravest.
I've charged each of these members to make certain that every day that they give us their best, because I can assure you, this organization, Tampa Fire Rescue, will absolutely make certain that we give them the best, to make certain that they have the skills, the abilities, the equipment to absolutely provide a high level of service. I wear this badge here that says that everybody goes home. My charge to them is to make certain that I send them back home to you every day after their shift, safe and sound.
The instructor's primary goal was to prepare these recruits for emergencies which they may encounter their first 24 hours on the job.
Always remember how excited you were when you got the call saying you were going to be a part of the TFR family. Carry that same excitement throughout the rest of your career every single day.
Recruits, understand something, that you are joining a family, you are joining a department that is 100 years old. And make no mistake, we truly do pick the best of the best. It is an amazing department. It is one of the finest departments in America by any measure. It is a department with a long history. It is a department that you are joining in which you stand on the shoulders of men and women who came before you. Some of them are your fathers and your brothers and your cousins and your aunts and your moms, folks who set a path for Tampa Fire Rescue that is now up to you to maintain. It is a department that you are joining where we expect you to excel. Mediocrity is not accepted. Second best is not accepted. You are joining a department where the men and women that you see in the back of this room, the men that stood up, are expecting you to persevere and to continue the tradition of Tampa Fire Rescue. The only easy day in your career was yesterday. So every day that you put on that uniform, whether you are on duty or off duty, you represent me, you represent this city, you represent your families, but most importantly, you represent the men and women who wore this uniform before you. You cannot, must not, will not do anything to sully that reputation. And I expect you to live up to the creed of this department and to honor the tradition of those men and women who made it great. You are joining an elite group. We expect you to live up to that tradition.
Four of the new recruits are sons of current or retired Tampa firefighters. Just goes to show Tampa Fire Rescue is truly one big family. Stay safe out there. Well, that wraps up my final edition of Spotlight Tampa. But don't worry, the show will continue to bring you the latest happenings in our city. I can say I've truly enjoyed sharing with all of you the efforts to improve our great city over the last 10 years. And I'll be sure to watch from home over the next 10 years. For all of us here at CTTV, I hope you have a great day.